boys and girls. A very dear witch friend of mine asked me to pop over and say hello to the Stage 1 class at Mayfair Academy. You might know her as Miss Jules, but I hear she's a little bit of a good witch, just like me. Anyway, my name, of course, is Mary Poppins, and I heard that it was International Children's Book Day, so I just popped down from my cloud nine with my handy umbrella, and I'm going to read a little bit to you in a moment. But first, I hear that there's somebody in your class with the name of Amir. I do apologize if I say these names wrong, but I'm perfect in every way, so I doubt I will. I hear that Amir is super fast runner, very helpful and rather funny. I do enjoy a good laugh. And then there's Jesus. He's kind, chatty, bit of a giggler, that one. And then, of course, we have Lily, funny, happy, wants to be a doctor. Lulu, always talking, but very funny. Always talking, though. Probably talking now through this. And then there's Louise, tricky, but a little shy. Shy, but tricky. That's a good combination, don't you think? Maya loves unicorns and mermaids. Bit of an actress. And Naya, super cheeky. Little bit bossy at times, but that's okay. We need somebody to organise things around here, don't we? And then we have Robert, smiley, happy, and extremely good. What a good boy Robert is. And then Tasia, a little bit of a chatterbox, I hear, Tasia. Lots to say, bit like me. But Miss Jules says that you are an exceptionally good class and she's missing you so much. So I'm going to read to you a little bit today about a story about me. This book is by P.L. Travers. He wrote Mary Poppins, Chapter 1, called East Wind. And here we go. If you want to find Cherry Tree Lane, all you have to do is ask the policeman at the crossroads. He will push his helmet slightly to one side, scratch his head thoughtfully, and then he will point his huge white gloved finger and say, "First to your right, second to your left, sharp right again, and you're there. Good morning." And sure enough, if you follow his directions, boys and girls, exactly, you will be there. Right in the middle of Cherry Tree Lane, where the houses run down one side and the park runs down the other, and cherry trees go dancing right down the middle. If you're looking for number 17, and it is more than likely that you will be, for this book is all about that particular house, you will very soon find it. To begin with, it's the smallest house in the lane, and besides that, it's the only one that is rather dilapidated and needs a coat of paint. But Mr. Banks, who owns it, said to Mrs. Banks that she could have either a nice, clean, comfortable house for the 4 children, but not for both, for he couldn't afford it. And after Mrs. Banks had given the matter some consideration, she came to the conclusion that she would rather have Jane, who is the oldest, and Michael, who came next, and John and Barbara, who were twins and came last of all. So it was settled. And that was how the Banks family came to live at number 17, with Mrs. Brill to cook for them, and Ellen to lay the tables, and Roberts and I to cut the lawn and clean the knives and polish the shoes, and as Mr. Banks always said, to waste his time and my money. And of course, besides these, there was Katie Nana, who doesn't really deserve to come into the book at all, because at the time I am speaking of, she had just left number 17. "Without a bye or leave or a word or warning, and what am I to do?" said Mrs. Banks. "Advertise, my dear," said Mr. Banks, putting on his shoes, "and I wish Robertson A. would go without a word of warning, for he was again polished one boot and left the other untouched. I shall look very lopsided." "That," said Mrs. Banks, "is not of the least importance. You haven't told me what I'm to do about Katie Nana." "Well, I don't see how you can do anything about her since she's disappeared," replied Mr. Banks. "But if it were me, I should get somebody to put in the morning paper the news that Jane and Michael and John and Barbara Banks, to say nothing of their mother, require the best possible nanny at the lowest possible wage, and at once. Then I should wait and watch for the nannies to queue up outside the front gate, and I should get very cross with them for holding up the traffic and making it necessary for me to give the policeman a shilling for putting him to so much trouble. Now I must be off. Oh, it's as cold as the North Pole. Which way is the wind blowing? And as he said that, Mr. Banks popped his head out of the window and looked down the lane to Admiral Boom's house at the corner. This was the grandest house in the lane, and the lane was very proud of it because it was built exactly like a ship. Oh, there was a flagship in the garden, and on the roof was a gilt weathercock shaped like a telescope. "Ha!" said Mr. Banks, drawing in his head very quickly. "Admiral's telescope says east wind. I thought as much. There's frost in my bones. I shall wear 2 overcoats." And he kissed his wife absent-mindedly on one side of her nose and waved to the children and went away to the city. Boys and girls, you should really read this book all the way through because it's all about me, Mary Poppins, and I am practically perfect in every way.